in my last video I mentioned that wrestling will always be a focal point of the channel, and that is the case, but when I changed the name of the channel, one of the reasons why I did is because I wanted to open myself up to the ability to have new content, or to do more content outside of the realm of professional wrestling. And this is my first step into that realm, because as the 2020 baseball season seems to be coming closer and closer to actually coming to pass, I thought it would be time to talk about some active baseball players who might not exactly have a lot of time left in their career, or may be able to find a second wind and extend their careers a little bit longer. For that, we start with one of the more interesting cases that fits that category, and that is Felix Hernandez. For the last 15 years, Felix Hernandez for the last 14 years, Felix Hernandez had called Seattle home. Starting at the age of 19, Felix Hernandez debuted for the Seattle Mariners in the 2005 baseball season, and though it took him a little while to get his feet underneath him as a pitcher, he hit the ground running, because he was one of the most highly anticipated pitchers to debut in baseball at that time, because of his age. Because he debuted at 19 years, 118 days old, and he was the youngest pitcher to appear in the majors since Jose Rizzo in 1984. And even though he really didn't find a spot in the Mariners rotation right away, like most pitchers, he would find his transition to the majors was made a little bit easier in 2006 when the Mariners traded Freddie Garcia. But nobody could have expected that even though sometimes, like recently, most people who come up from the minors as highly touted prospects seem to pan out. Like, I don't remember, I could probably count on one hand the amount of people that have not reached their potential if they were in the majors. Like, once they make the move from the minors to the majors, that, names like Bryce Harper, Carlos Correa, like half the Astros lineup, a lot of the Dodgers prospects, like any highly touted prospect in recent years has hit some form of their potential or still has room to grow. Back when Felix Hernandez debuted, though, it was still an unfamiliar sight. Felix hit the ground running came into the league with guys like Justin Verlander and, guys that are veterans nowadays. And Brian McCann, who just retired, Jose Reyes, Jose Reyes was, a year or two before, but, David Wright, again, David Wright around this time. But, Felix, much like everybody else, Felix did have some growing pains. He did have some growing pains, but it was also a victim of circumstance. He was also a victim of circumstance because he was in Seattle. And I'm not going to say that the Mariners were never a good team while Felix was there, it's more accurate to say that the Mariners were never the best team when Felix was there. Felix made the Mariners better, but the Mariners were never able to go over the hump and hit that next level. Taking a look at some of his past stats, specifically a 3-year period from 2008 to 2010 being when he won a Cy Young, he finished 9-11 with a 3.45 ERA and 175 strikeouts in 2008. And then in 2009, hit 19 wins for the first time. 19-5, 2.49 ERA, 217 strikeouts, and was in strong contention to win the Cy Young, finishing second to Zach Greinke, who had a breakout season at that time, in that season as well. And now you fast forward to 2010, 13-12, 2.27 ERA, 232 strikeouts, and 249 2/3 innings pitched, and would win the AL Cy Young that season. My point in reading off those stats is not to show how dominant Felix was during that period of time, even though consistency and dominance rang true during Felix's prime. It is more accurate to say that the consistency from Felix was lost after Felix, and that Felix carried the team when he pitched. He gave it his all when he pitched, but you can't win. You're not a playoff team, and you won't be a playoff team with just one good pitcher. You can build around a pitcher, but if you can't fit all those other pieces in, it's hard to go further than just having a solid season. And that's what happened to the Mariners. Because if you go back to 2008, Felix actually joined a dubious class of becoming one of a handful of pitchers to have an immaculate inning. An immaculate inning happens when a pitcher strikes out all 3 batters he faces in an inning, and Felix did that in the June 17th, 2008 game in a June. He actually did it in a June 17th, 2008 game against the Mariners. The Marlins. He didn't do it against himself. Now we fast forward to 2013. In 2013, I don't know why I keep thinking of CC Sabathia. This is where we get to the next year. This is where we get to current times, or is what will bring us to current times, and that is, on February 13, 2013, it was announced that Felix Hernandez signed a 7-year extension with the Mariners worth $175 million, voiding the final 2 years of his previous deal and including a team option for 2020. The contract made him the highest player in Major League history until he was surpassed by the $180 million extension signed by Justin Verlander of the Tigers later that offseason. Felix has been attached to Verlander since the start of his career, and it continued with this, where Justin surpassing him in this regard too. This contract was the last contract that Felix signed before this season, because at the end of the 2019 season, the Mariners decided not to exercise the team option, and a Mariners icon became a free agent for the first time in his career. If you go back to the very beginning, if you go back to the very beginning, getting discovered as a prospect, Mariners director Felix would sign with the Mariners at 16 years old, and by 17, and after having an amazing offseason in the Venezuelan League, would make his way to Double-A, and then by 19, be in the majors. So from age 16 till age 34, Felix Hernandez, in a way, spent half his life with the Seattle Mariners. He spent 18 years with the Seattle Mariners. Even though only part of those, even if only 4 of those years were in the minors and early on in his career, still, he spent the 18 years as a Mariner. Because he went on to say that one of the reasons why he chose the Mariners over other teams that were scouting him is because of his idol, fellow Venezuelan-born pitcher Freddie Garcia playing with the Mariners at the time. Now, that's a lot of time to spend with one team, and it's amazing to think that he spent 18 years as a Mariner in the minors and in the majors, pitched a perfect game in August 2012 against the Rays. Yeah, against the Rays. And as I mentioned earlier, the Immaculate Inning, his Cy Young Award in 2010, the fact that Felix Hernandez has 2,500 career strikeouts and, in my opinion, is on course for Cooperstown, especially if he can right the ship as far as his recent injury troubles are concerned. And maybe with the pressure off and a fresh start in Atlanta this season, he could actually make it work. Because it takes a very special pitcher and a very special player to have a section of the audience named after him, because on May 28th, 2011, a special cheering section for Felix, dubbed King's Court, debuted at Safeco Field on the foul territory side of the left field foul pole. It was a creation of the marketing director for the Mariners, and it marked the first time a Major League Baseball stadium had a promotion designed around a popular player. By popular demand, this cheering section was expanded from 2 to 3 sections 148, 149, and 150. Seats were also sold at a discount, and the ticket price included a yellow King Felix t-shirt and a placard imprinted with a large K to wave when cheering for strikeouts by Felix. 1,500 fans would typically occupy this section on days when Felix started. It is amazing that number one, that never happened before in any Major League Baseball stadium, that they actually designed a stadium promotion, that they designed a stadium promotion around a popular player, that no team in baseball history has done that before. And even expanded it on days when there was a marquee matchup or a big important game that Felix would pitch. They would expand a section of the upper deck, the King's Court, to a section of the upper deck, and called it High Court, or these sections were called High Court in the upper deck. There is no doubting at all the impact that Felix has left on the Mariners. The fact that he had been called King Felix since his days in the minor leagues, and that he actually never pitched a game in the postseason as a Mariner. But that doesn't change the fact that Felix is on course for Cooperstown. That last season, Felix became the 6th youngest pitcher in history to reach 2,500 strikeouts at 34 years old. At 34. And though he finished the 2019 season with a 1-8 record, 57 strikeouts, a 6.40 ERA, and 71 innings, and would become a free agent, as I mentioned earlier, Felix Hernandez did catch on with the Atlanta Braves, and the Atlanta Braves took a flyer on the Seattle Mariners icon. And the reality of the situation is that Felix could hit the rotation. Felix could hit the rotation this year for the Braves and join fellow veteran Cole Hamels in the new decks with Atlanta. As, in my opinion, there is very few better people in baseball nowadays for guys like Soroka and Max Fried and Sean Newcomb and Kyle Wright to learn from than veterans like Cole Hamels and Felix Hernandez. And I'm going to throw Mike Foltynewicz in there too, even though Foltynewicz, compared to his other cohorts in the rotation, is a veteran among them, or one of the veterans among them, because he's been in the majors for a while. Still, that doesn't matter. What matters is the king caught on somewhere else, and at some point could be holding court in Atlanta. I think it was a low risk, high reward type thing for the Braves, and a very smart decision. Even though the 2020 season is in peril right now, we keep hearing about how it's going to start, it's going to. You know, they got plans in place, they got ideas, they're pitching this and doing that, and it seems possible, it seems plausible, it seems likely, whatever the case may be, it seems like it could happen. I think the 2020 baseball season will happen in some way, shape, or form, and I think one way or the other, because you never know with injuries, especially with how this season has gone, you never know how ready a pitcher is going to be for the baseball season, because nobody right now knows when it's going to start, so you have to anticipate that somebody could get injured. And having Felix Hernandez as a backup plan, which, looking at the Braves roster, it seems like right now Felix Hernandez is considered a backup plan, or an emergency starter if they need one, or whatever the case may be, but he's there and ready to go if they need him. And having a guy like Felix, a future Hall of Famer like Felix Hernandez, as a backup plan is a very good backup plan to have for the Braves. And the Braves are ready for the baseball season to start. I mean, the Braves are ready when the season starts to be a competitive team once again. Now, I just want to clear up something. The reason why I picked Felix Hernandez, I am not a Braves fan. I'm actually a diehard Mets fan, born and raised for the orange and blue, and that might raise the question, why not pick a Mets player like a Yoenis Cespedes or somebody from the Mets that might need a rebound 2020 season? The reason is because, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I wanted to pick somebody who might be on their last legs, who needs a good season this year to continue his career, or even just a good season to retire on a high note as opposed to retire on a low note, just to prove that he can still do it. But there is no doubting in my mind that whenever Felix Hernandez does decide to hang up the cleats for the last time, that number one, number 34 will not be worn by anybody else in a Mariners uniform. Because once the king closes the court, the Mariners will hang 34 among the other legendary Mariners players that have had the dubious distinction and honor to have their number retired. Felix wants to prove he can still do it, and I damn sure believe he can. But either way, whenever that happens, 2,500 strikeouts, enough wins to maybe not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but definitely get in there eventually. And I know wins are not necessarily a categorical imperative to get into the Hall of Fame nowadays, but a track record of success and a track record of consistency and a track record of being one of the best in baseball for an extended period of time, even if the injuries caught up with him, and even if the years upon years of throwing crazy amounts of innings every year might have finally caught up with King Felix, who at 34 years old has a career total of 2,700 career innings in his total career innings, which is amazing in my opinion, and a 3.42 career ERA, over 400 career starts. Felix Hernandez is no doubt an eventual Hall of Famer in my opinion, and without a shadow of a doubt belongs there, not just in Cooperstown, but in the Mariners Hall of Fame with his number 34 retired, because there is nobody, even if the last couple years have been a bumpy road, there is nobody that can live up to the reputation that Felix left behind him with that number in Seattle. With that being said, let me know down in the comment section below who you'd like to see in the next breakdown, and what your thoughts on Felix Hernandez are. Do you think he can recover from a bumpy 2019 season in the 2020 campaign? Will Felix join the roster at some point for the Braves when the season does get going? When do you believe that the baseball season will kick off? And also, if you'd like to keep up on when new content comes out, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here. Till next time. Later.